Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Crew First Culture podcast. My name is Jeremy. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today's special guest, Adam Maiers, is on with me. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. You are actually somebody that I've been looking forward to talking to for quite a while, just because earlier last year, going through everything that we all went through, I kind of came across some of your stuff and I felt a connection with you because I was kind of in that same boat, at least what I felt like you were in, as far as I wanted to do something. The opportunities weren't as easily accessible as they used to be, and so just trying to find something to get outside and do. And I spent a lot of time just training on my own, just doing something. Feel like I wanted to grow or learn something every day, and sometimes that meant I was doing it by myself. And so, with that being said, give us a little bio of yourself. I know that you have the Engine Zero label attached to you, so kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, your fire service, and we'll get into. Let's just save the Engine Zero stuff for later, but give us a
Okay.
bio of yourself, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So let's see. Born and raised in Wyoming. And then after college, I moved down to Colorado. Man, I've had a kind of a weird career track. I worked for the Schwinn Mountain Bike Company with their professional race team. And then after they kind of went bankrupt and moved to Ohio, and nothing against Ohio, but I just couldn't move to Ohio with them. I got a job in the real world. I did that for like 7 years, working for a big environmental engineering company. Went all over the US doing crazy stuff, and then realized that, man, I hated living out of a backpack. And so I decided I needed a change. And one of my buddies from my hometown was a volunteer where I grew up, and he was trying to get on a career job in my hometown of Casper. And so talking to him, we went and did some climbing trips together, and through those talks, he talked me into looking into volunteering to see if I liked it, because I definitely needed a change in my life. And so I was living in Golden at the time, and they had a really good volunteer department there. So I applied, went through their interview process, got picked up by them. And man, a lot of people, I don't know if they ever find it, but that profession that just clicks with them. And the first day I walked into the firehouse, nervous as heck, didn't know a soul there, didn't know what to expect, and just had an awesome captain take me under his wing. And just, man, that first day was so much fun. There was so much to learn, so much to get better at. Man, it changed my life. And from there on out, I was hooked, like hook, line, and sinker. And so I volunteered there. And then once I got off probation there, that's when it hit that I really wanted to pursue it as a career. And so I started testing all over the Denver metro area. If anybody's from that area, they had the Dr. Cog, which was just horrifying. But I took that a bunch of times, tested with all the big departments over and over and over again for 3 years, volunteering the whole time. And then finally got picked up by a tiny little department on the southeast side of Denver called Cunningham. They no longer exist. They got taken over by South Metro, which is really good for them. But Cunningham was, dude, the little diamond in the rough department on the south side, surrounded by big departments. They played with the big boys. A lot of really, really good firefighters there. So learned so much more from those guys. We trained a lot with South Metro, which is a fantastic department on the south side of Denver. Did that for quite a while. Still volunteered at the same time. So I was bouncing back and forth, doing both. which was really good for me. But it was starting to take its toll on the family. We had 2 young kiddos at the time. And then my folks, who, still live here in Casper, they were getting older, and me and my wife sat down and we're like, at some point we're going to have to take care of them. Cause you can only go to so many old folks homes before you're like, I don't ever want to put my folks in an old folks home. And so we decided to move back to Casper. And so I came up here, got on the county department first, and then from there waited till the testing process and switched over to the city. So, and then I've been here ever since. So
how long have you been there?
It's 16. I've got like 16 years, I think, in the fire service or so. I kind of blank out at the beginning. I forget like exactly when I started, but it's around 16 years in the fire service. I've got around 6 here in Casper right now. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. So like I alluded to earlier, you've got your name attached to Engine Zero. It's something that I would like to hear more out of. I've seen videos that you've put out, and actually, like we talked about a little bit before we push record, I actually saw you kind of, I don't know if you want to call it a lecture or what, during a online conference last year, and really enjoyed a lot of the videos you were putting out. So talk to us a little bit about Engine Zero, kind of where that came from, the thinking behind it, and let's dig into that, because that's really, I'm really interested to hear more about this.
Okay. You're not going to be too impressed because it was purely by accident. But when I left Colorado and moved up to Wyoming, we trained a lot in Colorado. Every day we were on shift, we were training and going over stuff. And so when I came up to Casper, I had that mentality, and it almost gets beaten into you. And so I wanted to just keep training, and different departments do things different. That's just the way it is, and you can call me a square peg in a round hole, I guess, when I came up here. And so I wanted to train all the time. And, a lot of guys, when, they had their fill, they were done. And I just wanted to keep training. And so I would spend a lot of time just out when we had time, just working on different things. I wanted to, you move into a new department and you see chinks in their armor, right? And so you want to help. And so my thing is like, okay, like where to begin? Forcible entry is easy. It doesn't require a whole lot other than a couple of props, and they had the blue door. So we started working on that. And then that led me to start building props in my spare time around the station, and then just going out and practicing on those. But through the course of all of it, then that led to hose. There wasn't a whole lot of outside training being brought in. And there was a bunch of really great outside training hitting the nation, really. Nozzle forward was starting to kick off. You had some guys in small time, I guess, training cadres all across the nation. And so going to a couple of those, and then also supporting some of the ones that were in Denver, or in the Denver area. I should say Colorado Springs, because that's where they're out of. But Irons and Ladders, I went down and took their forcible entry class so I could learn more. But in the process, the department didn't really support it. And so I was like, but I wanted it. So I just went and did it on my own.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys, and I don't blame them, they feel like the department should pay for that stuff. But at the same time, this is a profession. If you want to be better at it, at some point, you're going to have to put your own money down to get better at it. and the thing is guys do it all the time. They buy stuff for themselves. Like they buy themselves a leather helmet, or they buy themselves a radio strap, or they buy their own tool, right? Whatever that tool is. They're always spending money to get better for themselves. And then they look at training and they kind of get like, oh, well, I don't know, that's a big ticket item. And for me, it was a no brainer. I was like, I would like to go to that. So I went. And through all that, I learned new skills that when I came back, my job didn't do those, right? Like you go to nozzle forward and you come back, and if your department didn't go to nozzle forward, your department's not doing nozzle forward. If it's not supported by the administrative staff, like it's not happening. So like I wanted to work on those skills that I learned. And I also wanted to kind of start showing them off to some of the guys so that we could, hopefully progress them. And then, so sorry, I kind of got off track there, but anyway, in the process of all of that, like I found myself more and more just being out on my own, out back doing it, which was fine. And Engine Zero wasn't even really in the back of my head. It was just me out practicing. And, a lot of those videos I always called it game tape. I had a pretty good backing in sports when I was growing up playing hockey. And so, and then it doesn't matter what sport you're into. When you see really good athletes in sport, they're constantly studying that sport. And they're watching game tape. Me and my brother, we used to watch hockey all the time. Like if there was a hockey game on, we were watching it, and that basically was just game tape. You would learn so much about what was possible and what was impossible, right? So I was like, I took that and I brought it to the fire service, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just start videoing myself for me, and I'll post it up because at the time, I got lucky and was able to talk to Gary Lane for a while, and we became really good friends in that process. And so we would kind of go back and forth sharing videos of us training so that we could learn from each other as well as learn from watching those. And I was like, well, maybe if I just post them, people can look at them and realize like, hey man, like here's some dork from Wyoming out back, doing God knows what, like, sometimes he's got hose in his hands, sometimes it's a photo of him doing forcible entry. Sometimes, it's a video of him, falling over with a bunch of hose on him or whatever the case may be. But like, I would try to take real world things that happened to either friends or myself on the fire ground, and I'd take them back to the station and try to work through them so that for me, when I was on a fire ground and it happened, let's just use the tripping one, for example. You're stretching hose and you trip with the hose. Like how are you going to fix that situation when it becomes a complete mess? And how are you going to do it fast without having all those emotions of being angered, embarrassed, right? And then like now you're behind the 8 ball, so all that pressure dumps on you. And so trying to get that pressure off so that you can just like it happened and then you bounced right back and nobody paid attention because you were moving so good that everything was done in the same amount of time. And so because I think a lot of times like our egos hit and our emotions kind of get the best of us. And so we don't want to ever show weakness, right? And it's like, man, we're all human, right? We all have weaknesses. So mine was like, maybe if I put those out there, people will realize like, hey, somebody is out there doing it, and they're showing that they're not, this 100% badass. Because I think nowadays with social media, dude, anybody can look like a badass, right? Like every family photo on Instagram is a happy family photo, right? And like, how many 100% happy families are there, right? Like there's always ups and downs, right? Not everybody's on vacation in a beautiful, part of the land every day of the week. So, so anyway, so it was kind of trying to open that up. And so this is the long-winded version to get to Engine Zero.
Oh, it's all right.
But one day I built a hose prop for a class that I was helping Brian Brush with. and I had it at the station, and I left it there so that we could. I was working on 2.5, and then like trying to work on hose loads for the department. And anyway, it was sitting in the bay. We were either at a class or on a call, and one of the neighboring stations came by, and my buddy on that engine, they were covering our station, and he walked in, he saw the prop. So he took some painter's tape and just put on the side of it E-0. And so like, and didn't say anything, right? So they go back to their station. We come rolling in, and I'm grabbing the Plimo vent for the engine, and I look over and I saw it, and I just started laughing, and I was like, that son of a gun, like, got me. And so I called him up, and I was like, dude, that is hilarious. Like, well played. And then I was like, and it's brilliant. So it was on there in tape, and I was like, man, it's really catchy. I really like that for some reason. And so I went over and I spray painted over the top of the tape, and then peeled the tape off, because I was like, I want it to last. And I was like, it's pretty funny because it's not any engine. It's just a prop. It doesn't go down the street, right? It's not getting washed every morning. I was like, but it is like a non-existent engine, right? And so engine 0 fit it perfect. And so anyway, long story short, after that, it kind of sat idle for a while, and I continued to do what I did. And then eventually it just kind of clicked that like maybe I could help the fire service and help people understand that, like, just because nobody wants to go out with you, or you're out there by yourself, that you couldn't just go out and train.
Yeah.
And do it on your own. If you want to be better, nobody's going to make you better. Like, you have to do it on your own. And so that means getting out and doing it, getting off your ass and just going out and doing it. And the thing is like, and I'll put this caveat in, again, we're all human. We're all fallible. We all have ups and downs, right? Like, there are days I go into the station and it's everything I can do just to get through the day, right? Let alone go out and start working on this stuff. And so there's days that it doesn't happen. There's weeks that it doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden it's back on again, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is that everybody's got to realize you roll those waves, right? There's highs and lows, and those highs, like, you take advantage of them and you go out and you work your ass off till the wee hours of the night, and then come back in. So anyway, that's kind of how Engine 0 started. And then I wanted it to be, I created an ethos. I have it written down somewhere. I think it's actually on my phone, which is probably going to be hard for me to find it for you. But anyway, because I'm using my phone right now. But anyway, I wrote down like an ethos for me and for Engine 0. And I wanted Engine 0 to be a call sign for all those guys that were maybe they're struggling with their department, maybe they're struggling with their crew, maybe they're just struggling internally because they want to be better and they feel like they're not, right? And so Engine 0 is kind of that call sign for them, right? Like, you can do a hashtag search of Engine 0, right? I took myself off Facebook, but I'm still on Instagram, and like, you can do that hashtag, and like, there's a bunch of people that post a bunch of stuff that have Engine 0, and it's them out doing stuff. Yeah. And so hopefully that will help them. It was something that I picked up from Fields. I picked up a couple of things that I think about all the time, and like, from Aaron, and I can't thank him enough for him. But like, one of the biggest ones was like, you weren't born into this profession, you were built. The question is who built you? I think that is a very, very deep question. And I the more I think about it, the more I see it, like, in different people, like, oh, I know who built you. Oh, I don't know who built you yet, but I can help build you. Yeah. Right. And so like, those older guys, you can see how they were built, right? The guys with seniority, you can see how they're built. You can kind of understand them a little bit better. The younger guys, they haven't been built yet. right? Or they're in the process of being built. So whatever you add to them is going to have a lasting effect through their career. So build them right.
Yeah.
And so I think about that one a lot. That was a huge one. I'm trying to think. I got off track again. Sorry.
That's all
But
right.
you know, because that one is a huge one for me. Was the who built you part.
Yeah.
But I'll the one here in a little bit. But anyway, sorry, I should have wrote them down. Anyway,
and that's what
happens. My brain.
That's all right. But that's a big deal right there. Just really that story. And I say that because and this isn't just me. I hear this all the time from other people as well that have podcasts or do any kind of social media thing to where you're kind of starting to represent something, is people just start reaching out to you with the same story over and over again. You know, I am a firefighter that wants to do things. I want to train. I want to learn. I want to grow. But nobody in my crew wants to do it with me. You know, I have an officer that is shunning all of that, or I have administration that won't allow this or that. And it's just over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And these are the things that we need to kind of steer them to, you know, just, you know, your stuff, what you're putting out. You've mentioned several really good names so far: Gary Lane, Brian Brush, Aaron Fields. You know, these are the people that you need to go check out, you know, check their stuff out. And at the bottom line, you don't have to have a crew out there with you. Is it great to have a crew out there with you? Absolutely. That's the
Right.
goal. But for me, you know, we have a hydrant right in front of the station, right in front of the firehouse.
Yeah.
And there've been a lot of days where it's just me with 100 feet, an inch and 3/4, or, you know, 100 feet, a 2.5, and just
Right.
flowing off of a hydrant. Is
Yeah.
that the proper way to do it? No, I mean, there's better ways to do it, but is it something that I can grow and learn from? Definitely.
Absolutely.
And
Well, and
so that's the
that,
thing is, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, I
No,
interrupted you.
no,
Apologize.
no, go
And
ahead.
that's the thing is, like, you know, that's the beauty of the hydrant, right? There's always excuses, right? There's the excuse, well, we can't take the engine out of service. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I get that. Like, I totally understand. Like, we can't have, you know, 1,000 feet of hose out and then drop a structure fire. That's, you know, irresponsible of us. I totally understand.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we can't find end arounds, right? And that's where, like, props come in. You know, like, I built that hose prop so that I could stretch off of something that resembled a hose bed, and then I can work on my stretching, right? Tying into the hydrant, or just practicing, you know, there's the other one of, like, well, how much benefit is there practicing in a parking lot? And it's like, there's a ton.
Yeah.
Like, the tactile stuff that you get when you have a hose in your hand and you're flowing, and your ability to make that hose do what you want it to do, right? Like, it has to start somewhere.
Yes.
And it has to start basic. You can't just throw yourself into a burning house that's, you know, full of garbage and God knows what else people put in there, right? And expect your mind to really dive into the weeds, right?
Yeah.
Because your mind can only take so much input before it starts compartmentalizing things. And a lot of the stuff that it compartmentalizes, it throws into the back, right? Because it's trying to figure out what's the most important at the time, and it's focusing on that, and it's throwing the rest of it away. And so if you're thinking that the only way you're going to get really awesome training is by, it has to be absolutely real 100% of the time, or it's got to be the real deal, right? And that's where you learn, right? It's all experience based off of real fires. It's like, that's great. Don't get me wrong. Those are awesome. And those are great learning opportunities. But to dive into the weeds of a specific skill, you have to break it down to its basics. And those basics get broken down in a very basic environment. And that can be a parking lot tied into a hydrant. I've learned more from a hydrant and 100 feet of 1 3/4 than I ever did in any burning building I went into. Yeah. Like my ability to handle hose has gone up exponentially because of it. And the thing is like, you learn those basics and then you can start to advance it. Right. And once you start to advance and dive deeper into a skill towards that mastery of that skill, you really start to like dive into the very small nuances, and it's funny because I think a lot of guys, I don't know if they want to admit it, that there's a lot more to it than just grabbing a hose line and pulling a lever and, opening the bail and flowing water. There's way more to it.
Oh yeah.
And the thing is you find that out, the more you do it is basically where it's at. It's that the Dunning-Kruger effect. I hope I'm saying that right. Is so true. It's like, you think you know everything, and then the more you do it, you realize, shit, I don't know anything. Like, right. And so now you're like studying. And then finally, like, as you start to dive more and more into it and practice it more and more, you start to realize like, okay, now I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Right. And you can get back to that first part that you had where you're like, shit, I'm the shit. Right. And like, you can get back to it. It takes a long road to get there. And so, hold on just a second. What's up, buddy? Yeah.
And you just like,
grab a snack, buddy. And so, but that's the thing is, and I'm trying not to knock on anybody because like I've been knocked on a lot.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is like, get over yourself, get over your egos, go out and learn this profession, right? Like I watched a really good little short clip from Mike Rowe, and he had this lady on there that she was one of the recipients of his scholarship to learn a profession, and she was gonna go out of high school into, was it plastic surgery is what she wanted to do. And so she went and she did like what we would consider like a ride along, right, with the doctor for doing plastic surgery. She's like, this sucks. I don't want to do this at all. And so she had taken an elective in college for welding, and she was like, oh, like welding's pretty cool. Like you can make some cool stuff or whatever. And so she was like, well, maybe in the meantime, I can just start welding to, make ends meet or whatever. And so she got that scholarship and she learned how to weld. And then she did a bunch of jobs she didn't like doing, right? Like, you can imagine welders weld all over the place on all sorts of different things. And there's different types of welding. And so as she was doing these jobs she didn't want to do, and learning the whole time she was doing those jobs, she was learning from these guys that were experts at what they were doing, welding on big machinery. Right. She was like, yeah, like I don't like welding on big machinery. And so, but she learned how to weld on big machinery from all these guys that were experts at it. Right. And she took that to the next level and to the next job. And then finally she ended up landing a job that she absolutely loves, like welding high-end aeronautical parts, right? But the road to get there was through a lot of shit and a lot of eating, humble pie, right, to get there, and checking her ego the whole way. And then she finally got to a level of mastery in a field where, she gets to make her own calls, and so like that's the thing is like it happens in every profession. We got to realize that like this is a profession. Like you can't go to a college and learn everything you can about this profession in a 6-month course and think that you're God's gift to the fire service, right? Again, you're built. So who built you? And it really comes down to you build yourself. You can't rely on a department to build you. They can give you the tools, they can help you along the way, and they can give you little bits and pieces. But in order to really build you into the best professional you can be, so that you can be the best for the citizens that pay your paycheck, like you're gonna have to check your ego, and you're gonna have to do a lot of it on your own.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to dive into those weeds on your own. And it takes a lot of work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do hear that kind of discussion a lot. We've never fought a parking lot fire, and I think for the most part, maybe maybe that gets twisted a little bit farther than the intended reason for saying that, but
Right.
exactly what you're saying, I've heard it as well, and I disagree with it a lot as well, because for me, I know, just like what you said, I know I have learned so much just sitting out in front on the concrete about technique and about rhythm, because okay, there's a difference between somebody grabbing a hose line, standing up or underneath or whatever, opening it up, flowing as much as they want, shutting it down, standing up, letting the next person do it, and somebody actually getting down there, moving with the hose line, working the hose line, taking a left, taking a right, all of that. You don't just grab a hose line and do it. You just don't do it.
Exactly.
I mean, you're going to look like an idiot. You just are, because there is, like I said, there is a rhythm to that. There is a technique to that. And parking lots are a great place for that, because you have no confinement, you have walls, there's no furniture. You're just learning the technique of that, your body movements. And I mean, that's a great place for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then, like I said, you start basic, right? And maybe, for me, it was, all right, I learned this, or I saw it maybe, right? Like maybe I saw it on a YouTube video or something. The guy was holding the hose like this, right? And I've never seen that. I want to go try it. Yeah. That's how it was for me, right? Like before I went to nozzle forward, I saw a video and I was like, I wonder how you hold a hose like that. Nobody's ever shown me that, right? When I came into the fire service, it was like, here's the hose, there's the fire, now go put the fire out, right? Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go out and just see if I can hold the hose like that. And I think I have it it's either on Instagram or YouTube. I know I've put it in a couple of classes that I've put together, but I get dumped on my ass. Like I open the line and immediately get thrown to my ass. And and man, talk about a slice of humble pie, right? Like you're just like, holy cow, like that they make it look so easy, right? And everybody says, oh man, this is the best way to hold a hose line, right? And so you're like, okay, I'm gonna go try it. And then you get dumped on your ass. And you're like, man, I must really suck. And so but that's kind of how it started. And then like I said, like it's kind of what you make it. It starts out basic and then it progresses. Nowadays, like when I go out and I put a hose in my hand and I'm flowing water, I started to integrate. I take a lot of stuff from sports. I look outside the fire service for a lot of inspiration, which is, I think, beneficial. But like I started using mental imagery. So I'll put myself in a burning building in that parking lot. And I'll be like, okay, I've got, a ranch with the fire blowing out of the Charlie Delta corner, right? And so I'm going through the front door. I've got 10 to 15 feet before I make that hallway right turn. And then I make that right turn. I got fire coming out of that back bedroom. I need to push back in that box and I need to make my way down that hallway. Now, it might be a hit and move, right? That I dream up in my head because that's what I want to work on, or it might be a flow and move, right? And so in my head, I'm in that hallway and I'm visualizing myself painting that hallway with as much water as I can to push all those BTUs back into that box so I can push them through the box and out that back window, right? And the whole time, right? I'm feeling the heat. I'm seeing the change of conditions, right? And I'm visualizing the water doing the work and me working with it and that rhythm that you talk about. And so like some of those videos, you'll see me like, I'll be progressing forward. I'll take a right-hand turn. I'll make a room, and then I whitewash that whole room, right? And it's basically, high to low, close to far, right? And just I'm working that whole room, and in my head, I'm like watching, fire go out. If there's stuff on the walls, like I'm picturing pictures launching off the walls, glass breaking, the sounds, the smells, like all that stuff, right? Of like just what actually happens in a burning building when you apply water. And, I had a fire, it was a while ago, and I remember I crossed the threshold and opened the line, and it sounded like an absolute explosion of glass. And I was like, what in the world is going on around me? It was like, am I in a glass? It was like Anchorman. I'm in a glass case of emotions, because it was just glass blowing up everywhere. And so, when I do those mental imageries, I'm trying to make it as real as possible. And like, I'm no longer in that parking lot. I'm hearing that glass break. I'm hearing the fire, right? I'm feeling the heat. I'm feeling it change. I'm seeing the change, like you're trying to paint that whole picture and make it as real as possible while you're doing it. Yeah. And that's when you like, it's no longer a parking lot, right? You're in a burning building for all intents and purposes. The mind is very powerful that way. And so like now when I get into a burning building, right, I'm not so oversaturated with everything that's going on that I can actually slow everything down and see where I need to place that water.
Yeah.
Right. And so basically you take something that's very chaotic, and like I always equate it back to like, think about your first fire, right? Try to remember everything about your first fire. And what can you remember? Like, if for me, I remember we parked the rig. Somehow I ended up at the front door. Next thing you know, I was bumping my head into something in the burning room. And I remember opening the line and stuff got better. And then we all high-fived on the outside. Like, there are huge chunks of time that are completely gone.
Yeah.
Because you're getting hit so much with so much information so fast. And if you're not ready for it, you can't slow everything down and see the bigger picture. Right. And so I think about it now, and like, but the last big fire I was on, dude, every bit of it I remember, right? Like I remember the hose stretch. I remember wiping down the exterior exposure building before knocking down the flames. I remember moving across the yard, beating down the deck that's on fire, climbing into a window and sitting on the window well, and like just water flying everywhere and fire going out everywhere. Stepping inside, realizing like, okay, like we've got the first half of this trailer is rocking. The back half is not. Like, we have control now. Like, the fire is not going to go into the back half. Like we've drawn the line, and now I'm holding the line. Right. And so now it's just like, you're just wiping water all over the place and watching fire disappear. Right. But like, I remember every bit of it. Whereas, that first fire, dude, like you might as well have teleported me right into the fire room, because I forgot everything that happened before that. So.
Yeah, anyway. Absolutely. And I think it's another thing that's important to share with everybody is you can make, you're talking about a lot of mental imagery stuff that doesn't cost anything, but some things that we do sometimes is just, we've got several big tires that we use to work out with, set them up to where they're corners. You go to these two tires, that's a corner, you take a left right there, then you go, then you take a right, or you see a lot of things on social media of hallways built with pallets. Pallets are very either free or inexpensive. There's so many different things, and it goes back to the excuses, you talked about it. There's no reason that we should find excuses. We just need to get better, period. We,
Oh
we
yeah.
don't need to blame, the officer because they're not this or that. We don't need to
Right.
blame administration, which I'm bad about.
Oh yeah.
If they're not supporting this or that, just go do it. My station has a hose prop as well. I love
Right.
it. It's on wheels. We can roll it anywhere we want to.
Yeah.
We've got a door prop. It just stuff that we've done on our own. Went out
Right.
and did it on our own. And I don't have to. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to ask permission to go make a prop so that it makes my crew better. I'm not going
Right.
to.
Yeah.
And
It's just,
so, there are so many ways to make ourselves better. We just got to cut out the excuses and do it.
right. And that's the thing is like, sometimes those excuses are our own, right? It's too hard. Right. Like, and the thing is like, there's always a lot of problems. A lot of people just don't have the solution. Right. And the thing is like, you have to really break down the problem to a solution. Right. And the solutions are usually very, very basic, almost to the point of, embarrassing that they're so basic, right? Like, I'm a professional firefighter. It says it on the sticker on the back of my car, right? Like, I should know this, but I have to break it down to the most rudimentary, basic, like childish almost level. And I bring this up because I like to explain this a lot of times when I talk. Like, I didn't just learn how to knee walk one day. It was a huge process. It was a huge problem for me to try to figure out, because I was out there by myself, right? A lot of times you have a heel that takes a lot of that reaction away.
Oh yeah.
But when you don't have that heel and you want to go out and practice, like, it's a complete,
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I want to go learn how to knee walk. I don't have somebody to heel for me. It's just me out here. Like, how am I going to do this? Because every time I open the hose line, like, I can't do anything other than hold that hose line. Right.
Yeah.
And so I literally, it took weeks, and I had to break it down to the point. And I have a video, I believe it's up on YouTube, where, or maybe it's on Instagram, but I'm literally in the back bay with a hose that has no water in it and a nozzle on it. And I'm working on trying to sort out the knee movement and moving the hose at the same time. And like, I equate it to like trying to chew bubble gum, like, and hop on one foot, right? Like, and rub your belly. Like, it's hard to do all those different things. Like, the top half of your body is doing something completely different than the bottom half of your body.
Yeah.
And if you try to do that with a charged hose line, flowing water right out of the gates, like, it's going to be so frustrating, because I know for a fact it was frustrating for me. I was pissed. I was like, dude, it can't be this hard.
Yeah.
And it took, like I said, weeks to break my mind into figuring out how to make those two things work at the same time. And I had to take away everything other than a dry hose and a nozzle to do it. And then once I got that down, I added water to the line for the weight, and I did it with that. And then finally, towards the end, I would tie into the hydrant, but I had a gate valve, and I would gate it down. And I slowly built up that nozzle reaction.
Yeah.
So that I could finally get it to where it was appropriate and I could actually do all of it. Right. But it was a process of breaking all of that down, and many frustrating days of just like, holy shit. But the second it unlocked, like, now it's hard for me to even remember all of that frustration and stuff, and to think that like it was that hard, because I finally unlocked it. I built the neural pathways to tell, the upper body to do this and the lower body to do this at the same time. And then I took it from there, and I was like, well, I wonder if I can do it with 2.5, right? Like, if I can do it with 1 3/4, man, what would it say if I could do it with 2.5, right?
Yeah.
The big gun. And so then I started trying that, and it was the same process all over again, right? Like,
Yeah.
breaking it down to something like these manageable bites and working on those manageable bites until you get better. Think of like forcible entry, right? You hand a person that's never used a Halligan before, and you tell them to force the door. Do they spin it like a baton? Like, which side do I use, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, you show them a couple of things that, like, a lot of times that maybe they'll read it in the book, right? And it's all fork side. So they know the fork side really well, but then you're like, yeah, try the ads. And like, again, they're spinning the baton, right? And it's that progression. And then eventually, like the guys that force a lot of doors or, are really good at it. There's a guy that we teach with at Brothers in Battle. He's so damn smooth with that tool. It's like watching art, it's like watching a professional, dancer move. You're just like, dude, there's rhythm to it. There's power to it. There's all this awesome stuff going on. You're like, holy cow, like, I want to be that good at that. Right. Like, so hold on just a second. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier about, being a huge difference between, somebody that just jumps down, opens up a nozzle, jumps up, lets the next guy do it, and actually getting in there and learning that stuff, because I'd have a hard time believing that the vast majority of the firefighters anywhere could get down on a hose line and do what we're talking about doing effectively, especially if they aren't in it doing it
right.
because it's hard. It's
Oh,
hard
yeah.
work, absolutely hard work. And especially if you're talking about doing it yourself, that does, and it makes me laugh when you were talking about that whole process, because that's kind of how I feel too. It makes me feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing, because I'm struggling just to move this line.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be this hard. But then you got to think, well, I'm not going to be in a fire doing this by myself.
Right.
Obviously
Correct.
you're going to have backup. It's never, if it's that hard in a fire, things are wrong, because
right.
That backup person is a very, very important person.
Oh, unbelievably
and
important.
If things are hard for the nozzle, for the person on a nozzle, then
Yeah.
that guy needs to be addressed. But anyway, that's always the process of, mentally, is like, I feel like everything I watch on internet is so much easier than actually doing it. And so it's just
Right.
funny listen you
Well,
talk about it.
you got to realize, like, again, it's just like the photos of all the families, right? Like at the beginning of our conversation, right? Like, it's always the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, we're at the Bahamas and like everybody's got smiles on their faces and pina coladas in their hands, right? What you don't see is the countless hours that it took to get to that, right?
Yeah.
I try to show in a lot of mine, like some of the mess ups, right? Like some of the, I try not to edit out a lot of that, because I want people to know, like, yeah, like there's failure in there. There is a lot of failure, and people need to realize that, like, failure is where you grow the most.
Yeah.
You learn way more from failure than you do from your successes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Your successes are like, damn, that felt great. And then you're like, you have that high for a little bit and it's gone, right? Failures, like, and this will kind of lead into some more Engine Zero stuff, but like all of my failures haunt me until I can correct them.
Yeah.
And so, and others people's too, right? Like I'll talk to guys and they're like, just one example, right? One of my engineers was out of my station. He was on a fire and he went to go throw a ladder to the backside of his house. Well, to get to the backside of the house was like probably 2.5 foot retaining wall, right? And so he goes to step up with the ladder on his shoulder, single man going around back to throw it, and just gets shut down by this 2.5 foot retaining wall. And he's like, what the, like, and like, it shut him down temporarily. He got up and over it. But like, I was like, man, I've never really thought of that. And so I was like, well, we work out at the station. I was like, one of these days I'll set up something where I do a workout with just the ladder. Right. And how to move my body with a ladder on the shoulder. Cause that thing is a huge lever arm that throws you all over the place just off of its little bit of motion. Right.
Yeah.
So I took, you got those workout tires. We do too, right? Everybody's into CrossFit. And so we threw the tire down. I threw the tire down, put the ladder on my shoulder. And my workout was stepping up and over that, like with the right foot first, with the left foot first, over and over, so that like I know what it feels like to high step up something with a ladder on my shoulder, right? So those little things, like I said, those little things, I dwell on those a lot and try to find solutions to them instead of just being like they're a known problem that I just don't want to address, right? It's like, oh, it's a known problem and like I need to go work on that. And so I'm going to take a little bit of time today and go work on that.
Yeah.
So, which leads me into, we were talking last night via text about, the stretch log. And then, I was like, I put together a journal. And the reason why I put together more of a journal format instead of a stretch log is because of that exact thing. Like I dwell on things a lot. Like, so I'll go out and practice on something and, one little thing will get into my head that I'm not doing right, that doesn't feel right, isn't working out, whatever. And the journal allows me to go back in, write down exactly what I was trying to do and what was hanging me up so that I can like go back and work on those things and allow my mind to like get it out there so that like it can solve that problem and find a solution to it.
Yeah.
And maybe it happens, the next day, maybe it happens a month later. Right. Like, but the thing is the journal allows me the opportunity to get it kind of out of my head.
Yeah.
So
no, I will say for sure that I appreciate, you were talking about the mess ups and posting the mess ups. That's something that I totally agree with. And I think is just not, it just doesn't happen very often. And do I post all my mess ups? Absolutely not even close. I'm not trying to say I do, but I do try to put some of that stuff in there because, that's part of it. We don't want people to get frustrated because they aren't getting these things figured out in a kind of in a time frame that they think they should, because all they're seeing is the positives that people are putting out there. It's good to know that these people are messing up too, and it was a process for them too, and all that. So I love that. I really think that it's important to share a little bit of both, share some of that. It takes a lot of humility to do that, obviously, but it's important.
Yeah. And like, I always, and maybe I picked this up from Lane, but like working on those mess ups, right? So like tripping on the fire ground, right? Like every firefighter I know, like, cause I know what goes on in my head, right? And maybe others are different, but we're all human, right? And we all don't want to look like a fool on the fire ground, right? And so like that tripping on the fire ground, like, dude, you're gonna get your balls busted back at the station if you do it, right? So it's always in the back of your head, right? Nowadays everybody's got a cell phone, they're always videotaping stuff, right? To post, and everybody loves, the videos of somebody getting smacked in the nards, right? Like it's we love watching people, have these little mess ups, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is like those mess ups, it's not the mess up that we should be worried about. It's how you pick yourself up afterwards and continue the mission, right? Because lives are on the line. So like I take that and like I think about it a lot, and I'm like, okay, because I did it in a class when we were in Harrisburg. I was doing the demo for the DIY class, and I ate shit doing the demo. And I mean, my helmet went 15 feet one way, the hose just exploded into this pile of mess. Right. And like, I pick myself up. I don't even really know where I'm at anymore because like I basically did like a couple of back rolls, pick myself up. I'm like, shit, where the hell's my helmet? Gotta go retrieve my helmet, gotta go, you know, and I feel like such a boob, right? Like I'm supposed to be here instructing, right? And I'm supposed to be the guy that has this shit dialed, right? And Murphy stepped in and I tripped and it was a yard sale. Yeah. Right. And so like, dude, I beat myself up over that for a long time. And that's when I was like, all right, like, you know what it feels like. You know that there's a problem when it happens, right? Like, how are you going to fix that problem? You're going to go out and practice it. You're going to go out there and legitimately trip over shit with hose on your shoulder over and over and over again until you feel comfortable with it. Because it's very uncomfortable. Yeah, when you do it, right? And it's very uncomfortable to go out in the bay and set all that shit up knowing that your crew is going to look out the bay window, right, and be like, what in the wide world of sports is going on out there? Why is he tripping himself and yard sailing all this stuff, right? And so I set that up and went over it and over it and over it and over it and over it again until I felt comfortable, like, in how I regain my composure after that, so that when it happens on the actual fire ground, I'm not so locked up in my own head because of it that I can't go finish my job, right? Because again, like a lot of times I don't think humans really like to think about the bad things, right? And the fire service has a lot of bad things. Yeah. And those bad things are when you're going to a burning building, there is always the potential someone is dying. Yeah. Right. And so like if you're locked up in your own head because you're worried about you just tripped over something and yard sailed, like you're not thinking about the bigger picture of them, right? And the mission at hand. Right. And so I wanted to get all of those feelings, like, and that crushing ego blow pushed down so that I could pop back up, get right back to work. And I'm still in the same, warrior state of mind of like, hey, I'm still in the battle. Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's, just another part of all this is get creative. Don't just do the same things over and over again. Just try to find new things to do. Something else that I've done that is it's kind of fun and it's good to break away from the norm is that with that hose prop, just set it up in different areas and use rigs or use vehicles or use whatever and kind of work on pulling lines around things and stuff like that. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do with basically nothing. Yeah. And so just mixing it up, doing something different, just doing something in gear on air. I mean, it doesn't even hardly have to be anything that important, but being on air and getting your body used to being on air, if you don't do it regularly, that's a big deal just in itself.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like, it's funny because like we're pretty good at moving around with just the like normal clothes, right? And that now you stuff a snowsuit on somebody and some moon boots and then reduce their vision and put an extra 65 pounds on them and then basically tell them to do the same things. If you haven't practiced it, like, dude, I still like I'll run to go get the Plimo vent, in my bunker gear. And like, it still feels awkward because of the shit in my pockets, swinging around, like pulling off balance and whatever, and it's just like, God, it's just so awkward. This gear is awkward. Right. And you're absolutely right. Like getting in that gear and moving around in that gear helps you, just be better at moving around in gear. Right. And being creative to go on that point. You get tired of stretching hose out back to the same door, right? Like you go find different things to stretch hose to, right? Like you you put those props in, like you were saying, you're flowing water out back, and like you've got it pretty well dialed. Go find a set of stairs. Hell, go build a set of stairs, right? Like stairs are unbelievably difficult,
Oh yeah.
right? To master. Like go work on those things. You know, the fire service has a bunch of different skill sets that you need to work on. Go work on forcing the door. Go work on drags, you know, victim drags. Go work on throwing ladders. There's so much to do, you know, so much to work on. You can just set up a loop of like, you know, hey, you know, I'm going to work on stretches this go. Next go, I'm working on ladders. Next go, I'm working on search, you know, and you can just rifle through those and keep those skills up, because every skill's perishable.
Yeah.
You know, once you have it dialed, if you let it go, it's gone. It will go away. And then you'll go back to it and you'll be like, man, this feels funky. You know, I obviously let too much time lapse. And so, but one thing I started doing is, because I work at a pretty busy station, and we run a lot of calls, but we also, you know, have a lot of other things going on. So my morning rig checks become my training ground, right? Like, I work on, sorry, I don't know if the lighting got all weird, but anyway, I work on masking up, in the morning when I do the truck check-in. That's the first thing, right? We go check in our packs, we go check in our stuff. Did we oh, you're still there, okay.
Oh.
But sorry, I thought we locked up. But but yeah, like I'll throw my gear on, I work on my masking up drill, right? Where I hop off the rig, I throw my mask on before I hit a door in the bay, right? I'll pick a door, and like as I'm walking to that door, like by the time I hit that door, I better have my mask on, right? Yeah. And I'll work on that a couple of times. And as I move my way around that rig, I just go through and work on simple things that don't take too long, right? I throw a ladder every morning that I come into the station. It doesn't matter, rain, snow, sunshine, wind, whatever. I go out and I throw that ladder. When I go to check in the saw, I go out back, and instead of just firing it up and setting it on the ground and allowing it to idle its way through life, I go out and I put myself on a roof. I pick where the fire is. It's off to the right. It's off to the left. I think about how I'm going to walk across that roof. You know, I think about the guy that's sounding for me, and then I make my cut. Right. And all of those things are just repetitions over and over and over again. I don't think about my saw cuts anymore. It just, you know, like I just start moving, and I can start to think about other things like, oh, yep, like I got good smoke showing from this vent hole, you know, like, or fire's blowing out of it. We need to punch it down, you know, punch down that drywall ceiling or whatever it may be, and really get into that compartment. Like all those things I can start thinking about, because I'm not thinking about, oh, I got to think about how I do this cut. Like the cut becomes automatic, and now I can think of other things. So, but all those things, dude, those are morning reps. And every day I come in, I get at least one, if not more reps of all of those things. And so, you know, over the course of, you know, think about just 10 years, how many times, how many reps you get of all those. Like, you know, I used to not like throwing ladders. Now I don't think about it. Mm-hmm. The ladder becomes so easy, I don't even think about it. And the thing is once it becomes easy, you can start to realize like some advantages and disadvantages you have with a ladder, right? Yeah. Like what are the disadvantages of throwing a ladder like this or moving a ladder like this? What are some of the advantages? Like you start to realize that like there's more to that ladder than you know, right? And so the new guys, I always love, like it blows their mind when you stand that ladder straight up and walk away from it. You know, just like, what? Like, is somebody going to foot that ladder, you know, hold that ladder? It's like, no, it'll hold itself, man. And like, everything's got balance. Like, you got to figure out how to move that ladder so that you can find the balance with it. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, you talked about kind of if you don't stay up on something, you're going to lose it. And that is one frustrating thing, I think, is because there are so many things that we have to know and have to be able to do. And it's just not feasible to be great at every single thing at the same time, because by the time, just like you said, by the time you get solid in one area, well, crap, it's been a month since you did this thing over here. And so I go do that, and it's like, no, I'm not starting completely over, but I'm definitely not at the level that I was, when I was doing it all the time. And it's just so you're just constantly chasing something, it feels like.
Right.
And I think for that, I've really kind of started focusing on basics, just like sports. You got to be good at the fundamentals. And so
Right.
like pretty much everything we've talked about, that for me as a station officer means we're going to focus on hose line management stuff. We're going to focus on forcible entry, focus on search, and we're going to focus on ladders. Those four things.
Right.
Are there other things that we need to know how to do? Absolutely. But if I can condense it down into those four main categories, I feel like those are the biggest areas of impact that we have. So we're going to at least be good in those areas. And I think that's a way to maybe manage it a little bit better, so you don't get lost in the vastness of everything we are capable of doing.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, there's so much to the fire service, and more added daily, it seems. But the biggest that, like, you hammer the basics for what we're signed up for, right? We are firefighters first and foremost. We're not high angle experts, right? We're not swift water experts. We're experts at firefighting. That's why they pay us, like, right? To go put the fires out and get people out of burning buildings, right? The rest of it, like, yes, like, we need to be proficient in it, but we don't have to be necessarily experts in it.
Yeah.
Right. But those are the things that we kind of focus on, right? Because we think that, like, oh, the fire side of it's easy, right? And it's like, well, if it's so easy, how are we still allowing people to die in burning buildings to burn to the foundation, right? Or firefighters to die in these? If we're that great at firefighting, why aren't we so, you know what I mean? Like, why do we have all these problems?
Yeah.
And then on top of it, like, I love what Brush is doing. Like, we have to celebrate our wins.
Yeah.
Right. We have to show the people, like, hey, we are winning at the same time. How we win is we focus on those basics. Like you said, like, it's all about the basics. If we can be so good at the basics, right, like, they become automatic, and then we can start to work on the advanced stuff.
Yeah.
But it's always from that foundation of the basics. And I'm sure I pissed off a lot of rescue guys or whatever, but at the same time, like, I get it. But you're rescue guys, right?
Yeah.
You have a specialty unit for rescue. Those guys need to be experts at rescue. I'm on an engine. I need to be an expert at firefighting.
Yeah.
Right. I would expect a truck to be expert at trucks, right? They're on the truck, right? I don't get that luxury. I kind of bounce all over the place, but my main focus will always be fire.
Yeah.
Because that's what it says on my shirt, firefighter, right?
Yeah.
I work for a fire department, right? I don't work for, Billy Joe's, technical rescue expert service, right? I work for the fire department first and foremost. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked bounced a little bit around the kind of the discussion of, paying your way. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, yeah, hold on. Just save that thought. For the drywall guy just showed up.
Okay.
It's chaotic.
That's all right.
You want to grab me from the back?
Yeah, go ahead, bud. All right. Chaos, dude.
Oh, that's all right. Life, there's always something going on here as well. So don't.
Oh, dude, it's so funny. So yeah, I apologize to interrupt you there. And I might end up moving. Yeah, you guys can just come and go. Come on, Yuki, inside.
That's what I was worried about. I didn't want to
Hey, come on, let's go inside. I got a blind dog here.
Come on. Inside, buddy. Let's go. Inside. Come on. Oh, boy. And there goes the other one. Come on. Inside. Casper, come on. Let's go. Casper, come on. Let's go. Hey. Oh, my gosh. Sorry, buddy.
You're right.
Come on. Inside. Inside.
Let's get up to the back. The front was just fun.
Yeah. Casper, come on. Inside, dude. You hard-headed dog. Let's go. There we go. All right. You guys are good. Come on. All right. I'm going to move because it's going to get really loud.
Okay.
As they come in and out the back door. So anyway, guys, get back to it. Oh, all right. There we go. Might be quiet here. So anyway, where were we?
I was talking about you had mentioned a little bit earlier about kind of the mindset of not wanting to pay for classes, not wanting to pay for conferences and things like that. And I got to be honest, I've kind of went back and forth on that through my career, and have had the mindset of, well, that should be paid for, and overtime should be, all that. And, it is what it is, whatever. But at the end of the day, now I can't help but feel like if it's something that I feel like it's important, if it's something that I feel like I want to do because I think it's going to help me grow, help me learn, then I just need to do it. And I definitely don't need to wait on admin or training division or whatever to tell me it's okay to make myself better and it's okay to become better as a leader. I need to be doing that on my own. There's no excuse or no waiting to do it. And so that's kind of, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. And, I get both sides of it. I totally understand it.
Yeah.
It becomes a personal decision for you.
Yeah.
Based on your values and what you hold important. And I totally and I'll never knock anybody for not doing it.
Yeah.
Or doing it. It doesn't matter. The thing is if you want it, you can also just make it happen. Right. And how you do that is, you bring in training, just do it on. Right. So, here in Wyoming, we haven't had outside training for a long time. And a couple of us got together and we were like, you know what, let's just put together a conference. Let's bring the training in. And if the department supports it, great. If they don't, great. We're doing it.
Yeah.
And we'll do it on the outside. Right. And we'll bring it in. And so, yeah, we got a conference coming up in the middle of May here in Wyoming. And dude, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great for the firefighters of this state, as well as whoever comes from out of state. And the thing is, there's another quote from Gary Lane that I really like is you can either wait out experience or you can seek it out. Right. And so if you wait it out, right, you could go an entire 25-year career in the fire service and only have a handful of fires to draw your experience from.
Yeah.
Right. Or you can go seek out experience from all these people that are out training or teaching. Right. And there's good and there's bad, like anything in life. But if you find the good ones, right, you seek them out, you gain so much more experience from the lessons they've learned, right? The stuff that they're teaching you, the little, for lack of better words, tricks of the trade, right? You seek those out, that makes you better, right? Well, if you're not getting, nobody's going to pay for it. And you want to hold that line of hey, somebody needs to pay for it. Somebody needs to bring it in. Guess what? Why don't you? Right. If not you, who? Right. Who's going to help everybody get better? Because that's the thing is I think a lot of times we don't realize we're all in this together. right? From the newest firefighter all the way to the chief, we are all on the same team. It gets muddled a lot with personalities and whatever. But the thing is we should all want everyone to get better. And like I think it becomes hard in the fire service sometimes, right? Because trust is such a big thing. And once trust is broken, to look around and be like, I want you all to get better.
Yeah.
And if you want to get better yourself, you should want it for everybody else as well. Like you should want, like, I'll use Fields again. Knowledge is power, right? But if it's lorded and hoarded, it's divisive, right?
Yeah.
And you should be sharing that knowledge. And, as much as you want to be the guy that has all the knowledge, right? And the one that everybody comes to for all that knowledge, like that's very divisive to the rest of your department. Like you should want everybody else to have that knowledge as well. You should be giving it out freely. When you go to these places and you learn something new that can help everybody on your department, bring it back and give it out. Right now, is everybody going to receive it? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right. But you shouldn't lord it and hoard it. Right.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be like, well, I know something you don't, and I ain't going to tell you. Right. And then something bad happens to him and you could have helped him. Right. So anyway, that makes any sense. I kind of went off there.
Oh, no, that's, and that's, I say it quite a bit is that's how we're going to make the fire service better is, these conversations of people reaching outside of their crew, their department, whatever, joining together, networking, finding like-minded firefighters that will also want to do better, because most people aren't lucky enough to be in a crew full of people that want to do better, full of people that want to grow. You are probably just going to have a couple of others with you, if not just by yourself. And so reaching out, finding those like-minded people that are going to fuel that fire and just keep up that progress. It's very, very important for sure.
Yeah. And just realizing that everybody's on a different part of the path. Right. Yeah. I think a lot of times, like you can get kind of jaded, if you're the younger guy, it's, those senior guys, and then if you're the senior guys, you're like those younger guys. Right. And what we need to realize is we're all on the path. It's just, we're all on different parts of the path. Right. Yeah. Because those senior guys were young guys once, and they were hard hitting, get after it guys. Right. And now like they're at that senior stage of their career. They don't need to be the hard charger anymore. They play a different role. Right. Now some of them play it good, some of them play it bad. That's life. Right. But at the same time, we're all in it. We're all on the same path. We're just at different stages. They have different things going on in their life, right? Everybody has something going on in their life that they're not telling the rest of their crew about, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's financial, maybe it's, a marriage thing, maybe it's just a family thing, right? Maybe it's, their parents are getting old and they have to take care of them all the time, and they don't want to burden everybody with all that stuff. So there's so much stuff that goes on that in the background of why people make decisions, right? And I think what the fire service needs more of is empathy in that, of just realizing like, hey, like, Dave over there just snapped at me, right? And like Dave's usually a pretty mellow guy. Like, it's not that he hates me. Maybe he has something else going on in his world that he's just a little bit more on edge today, right? So instead of just casting Dave out and being like, Dave's just an asshole and I don't ever want to talk to Dave again, we should have that empathy to realize like, hey, they're just there's something going on, and maybe he doesn't feel comfortable talking about it, and maybe that's why he's acting that way, and I need to just realize like what if I was in his shoes, type of. So having that empathy for the guys and gals that we work with is huge. And just caring, right? Like trying to care that they get better and to help them get. And that's, that's kind of what Engine Zero morphed into, was like, zero ego, zero excuses. It remove the ego from it, right? Like, I'm not any better than you. I'm not any better than anybody I work with. I am just another key player in the team, right? And we all have strengths and weaknesses. Because if everybody was like me, dude, it would be the most ridiculously boring fire service, right? Like, all we would do is stretch hose and flow water and work on all this stuff. And we wouldn't have any, we would all be like automatons, right? Like everybody would be the same. We'd all be robots.
Yeah.
And what makes it great is that we're all different. You bring strengths that I don't have.
Yeah.
Right? And vice versa. Hopefully my help your weaknesses, right? And we all get better together. I like to usually end a lot of the trainings that we put, because I help with Brothers in Battle and a couple other guys, training groups. But and I got this from a great podcast called Find Mastery, which I use a lot to just for outside of the fire service input. And one of the things is his name's Michael Gervais that runs it. But one of his big sayings is be the tide that lifts all ships, right? And I'm sure he got it from somewhere else, but like any quote, right? It's so hard to find the. But anyway, be the tide that lifts all ships.
Yeah.
Like if you can start to try to do that as an individual in your organization to lift all those ships, right? And to get everybody to become better, right? Think of what your department, every department could be this diamond in the rough, right? It just needs a little bit of polishing. And once you get that crusty layer off, right? Or whatever it may be, right? You polish it up a little bit and you're just like, you're the shining example. Well, what does that do to the departments around you? Damn, those guys are good.
Yeah.
We want to be that good, right? And so basically everybody starts to rise, right? Because they come to you and they're like, dude, how did you guys, you guys are awesome. Can you guys teach the class on that? We watched you guys do whatever on last fire or you guys kicked ass on this last training, right? And then they want you to help. And so you help them, they get better, right? Now they become a shining example. And now that friendly competition of right, damn, those guys are good. We better up our game, right? So in dropping the ego, instead of being those guys suck and blah, blah, blah. It's no, those guys are awesome. Let's be like them. Let's raise ourselves to that level. Let's hold ourselves to a level that the people hold us to. Right. Because dude, the people hold us to a very lofty level that I don't think we'll ever meet.
Yep.
There's no way on God's green earth we could. And that's just being honest.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we can sure as hell try to get there every day that we're there. And that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And it doesn't matter who you are. We all can get better. And just like you said, the caring to help somebody else and just iron sharpens iron. We all make each other better. That's stuff I love all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate so much your time and kind of getting to know you. Enjoy the conversation for sure.
I appreciate you reaching out, man. Definitely.
No problem. This is stuff that we all need to hear right now. And I think that there are a lot of us out there that want to be better. We want to do better. We might just not have that support close. So
right.
Just talking about reaching out and finding other avenues, finding other outlets. It's very important. So I do appreciate everything you are doing and really want to kind of share the message that you're trying to put out there, because it's, like I said, it is important for sure.
Well, and the nice thing is that I'm going to throw this back at you. By you doing this, right,
by you interviewing people and putting out your podcast, it helps so many more people than you'll ever know, right? And it's all because you have the empathy inside to want to share knowledge, right? You want to learn, and you also want to share, right? Like, this is a great format for taking knowledge in and then broadcasting it out.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Like,
Yeah.
so thank you for taking the time out of your day, because I can only imagine what you have to do after all this is said and done to make this, something that you can put out to the rest of the world, right? As far as like making sure that the sound works all right. I'm sorry, there's hammering going on. But you know what I mean? There's a lot of work that goes into the background of what you do. And I just want to say thank you for doing it, because you will reach more people than you will ever know. And it will always be there for people to go reference. Right. And so you in and of itself, you are like the tide raising all ships. Right. And so thank you for that. That's cool.
I appreciate it.
Wow, dude. Like I said, I'm just a dork from Wyoming doing.
Well, tell everybody out there, if they want to see more of you, find you somewhere, get a hold of you, whatever information you want to put out there for everybody.
Okay. So a lot of the stuff that I have out is just under my name, Adam Maiers. So, or A Maiers, and the last name's Maiers if you want to spell it. So, I'm on Instagram. Let's see. Oh God, that's good. Hold on, let me move here. Maybe I'll start that again, and maybe you can edit it. How's that sound?
That's all right.
Maybe I can go outside now. Dude, we had like 3 feet of snow the other day, and it's just now starting to warm up. So, let's see. We'll go outside. So yeah, let's see where they can find me. I'm on Instagram. I'm no longer on Facebook. I took myself off of Facebook for a lot of reasons. But anyway, for Instagram, I'm under either A Maiers. I've separated out my firefighting stuff from, or tried to, on Instagram. So I'm like, if you want to see photos of like old photos and old videos of my firefighting stuff, it's under A Maiers. But a lot of the newer content's just going to be me and my family. And then, but I'm also under Engine Zero Actual, because somebody took Engine Zero, which is kind of cool actually. But yeah, so it's Engine Zero Actual on Instagram, and then the rest of it's under just my name, Adam Maiers, or A Maiers, and it's YouTube. I've got a channel on YouTube, and then one on Vimeo. So, and they might have some of the same videos. I tried to move a bunch to Vimeo for a while, and then but yeah, so anyway,
Sounds good.
Yeah, dude. And if anybody needs to reach out, just they can try to hit me up through Instagram, and I usually contact back. So
all right, well, again, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, dude,
everything you're doing, and look forward to what's to come. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, brother. You be good.
All right, we'll see you later.
See ya.